Hey listeners, thanks for dropping in. I'm Christy.
And I'm Melissa. And this is Buried Motives, where we dig deep into the details of some of the most gruesome
dirtbag murderers.
Hey listeners.
Welcome back to Buried Motives.
We're glad you're joining us this week.
We are so happy that you're with us. Any new listeners, welcome. And to the ones who have been around for a while,
we're glad that you've stuck it out with us. And you keep coming back.
That's right.
It gives us a reason to keep coming back.
I was just going to say that.
What have you got to tell us today, Christy? Which case are you bringing us?
Well, today we are going fishing.
What?
And the catch of the day is catfish.
Oh, I love these drama-filled ones.
I did hear this case before, but then I recently watched a YouTube video put out by Danielle Kirsty on this case, and I knew immediately that Melissa would be all over this case. So this episode is for her. She loves drama, and this one is definitely full of it.
Aw, shucks.
Yeah, I'm dedicating this one to you, my girl. I also found a fantastic write-up of this case in The Guardian magazine, plus many articles which I was able to pull a lot of information from. This is a cautionary tale that teaches us to not believe everything you see on the internet, and that not everyone is who they say they are. You can't always trust who the person is at the other end of your screen.
So true. And in the online world we live in, it's crazy how you can get wrapped up in a virtual world.
That is so true. A lot of our world is turning virtual, and I think it's going to continue to do so. So I feel like these types of cases are important to talk about. Catfishing isn't necessarily illegal, but when it leads to murder, as it does in this case, I think some laws need to be made to hold people accountable for their actions. If you don't know what catfishing means, it's basically pretending to be someone online who you are not. Sometimes to scam or become romantically involved with someone else. You create or steal a fake persona in order to trick someone into believing you are someone else. I personally get so many Facebook friend requests from supposed handsome men who all happen to have their profile pictures as doctors or pilots.
Oh, that is amazing.
It's true. It is laughable to me, and I declined the friendship requests, but sometimes it isn't so easy to spot. I'm like, no, Gerald, I don't want to go for a ride on your plane. I don't know how I get these requests, but I do. In true Buried Motives fashion, I tried to look up some statistics on catfishing. A recent study in 2020 reported that 41% of Americans admitted to being catfished. As I mentioned, I feel like topics like this need to be talked about more because for some backwards reason, when someone gets scammed or catfished, they can be embarrassed to admit it. But if 41% of people are getting catfished, we need to be more aware and willing to discuss it.
Oh, it's so true.
But you kind of have that shame of, oh, it happened to me, I can't say anything.
Meh, that's not me.
I feel like it is a lot of people because you feel silly for getting bamboozled.
It's true, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Christopher Salgado presented at CrimeCon 2022 and gave such an interesting presentation on romance scams. He stated that in 2021, $547 million was lost to romance scammers in the United States.
That is crazy.
In 1 year.
Looking for love.
Yep. In your pocketbook.
Ooh. Well, people are getting scammed because they're looking for love.
Exactly.
Right? They're vulnerable because they're looking for love.
Yes. In today's case, the catfisher wasn't after money. He was bored with his life and looking for a thrill. His pathetic actions turned into an obsession that ended with deadly consequences. This case can get a little confusing since we are talking about someone creating a fake persona, so stay with me, get a little snack, and settle in. You are in for a ride. I do not have background information on our dirtbag today because we honestly do not need it. He didn't grow up in any type of disadvantaged way or struggled with any type of mental illness to excuse his actions. He was an average bloke living in an average suburban life who let his boredom and lack of ambition take him away into a fantasy world. He didn't start out as a loser, but definitely ended up as one.
Which is almost all the more scarier, isn't it?
It is.
That this could be just anybody that gets bored.
It really could.
The slippery slope.
I agree. We are going to start in the spring of 2005 when Thomas Montgomery was 45 years old. Most days were the same for Thomas and his all-American family. Thomas, or Tom as he was called, worked at the Dynabraid factory in Clarence. Clarence is a small town in upstate New York. I looked online and I believe the factory is still there. It sounded like he may have worked on an assembly line of sorts making parts for power tools, so possibly a repetitive job. He had been working there at the same job for 12 years. Tom was married to a woman named Cindy. They had been married for 16 years at this point and had 2 daughters together. After work, Tom would come home and walk Shadow, the family dog. He would then take his girls to whatever after-school activities they had going on that evening. Both girls were part of the local swim club where Tom was the vice president. They would eat dinner, sleep, and repeat. It was said that Tom was a good father and a good husband to Cindy. There were no looming major concerns. In his free time, Tom would get together with some of his buddies to play Texas Hold'em, which is a type of poker. He played games on his computer and was active in the company tournaments for the card game euchre. I read that he was good at it and finished high up there in previous tournaments.
Okay.
And if you haven't played euchre, it's fun. Melissa taught me how.
It's a fun game.
We haven't played it in so long.
We need a games night.
We really do. On Sundays, his family went to church and Tom taught Sunday school. This life sounds like a pretty good one. A life that a lot of people might aspire to have. A steady job, a wife and 2 children who love you, friends, and activities you enjoy. Perhaps it was a midlife crisis or the fact that Tom wasn't feeling like his younger self anymore. That Tom decided he wanted to become someone else.
Isn't that the definition of a midlife crisis?
Yeah.
You're not your younger self and you want to be somebody else?
Yep.
It sounds like a midlife crisis.
Yeah, he should have just went and bought a Corvette, like the rest of them. Reminiscing over days gone past, Tom decided to create a new persona, a younger, better version of himself. He created Tommy. Tommy was only 18 and was an active Marine in Iraq. Tom had been a Marine for 6 years when he was younger, but never saw any action.
Was that something that he had wanted to do?
I don't know necessarily that he wished that he had been, but I think he looked back to that time in his life as the good old days.
Okay.
I was young, I was fit, I was in the Marines. That was a good time.
Who wouldn't put their 20s as a good time?
Right? But just like with the rest of us, Tom had aged. Tom looked like an aging 45-year-old man. So he dug out old pictures of himself to use as a profile picture. He found the perfect one. The picture was of him when he was just a young buck in Marine uniform.
I'm surprised that he's even using his own picture. Most don't even do that.
He does. But I think he's really going back to that time in his life.
So this would just cement for him this persona that he's creating.
Right, because it's part of him.
Mm-hmm. Creates a bigger illusion.
Right. And even to give him the name Tommy. I'm Thomas, so my younger me is going to be Tommy. On work stationery, Tom wrote down a description of Tommy and stored it in his toolbox at work. He said that Tommy was a black belt in karate. This was a lie. He said that Tommy had scars from being shot on his left shoulder and right leg. Again, a lie. He said that he had thick red hair, which was only a partial lie. His hair was reddish, but it was now thinning, and he had an old guy mustache.
What's an old guy mustache, Christy?
When you see his picture, you'll know. Okay. I didn't show you one yet, but I will post one. He just looks like an old guy.
And weird that he would take that note to work with him.
Yeah, he stored it in his toolbox. He had to write it out, I think, to keep his lies straight, or okay, I'm creating this character. He wrote down that Tommy was 6'2" and a lean 190 pounds. Another lie. He might have been close to that height, but Tom's waistline had expanded since the good old days. Excited to be Tommy, Tom created a Pogo account. I had to look this up. It is a free online gaming site that was created in 1995. You can create an account and then choose from over 50 online games to play. While playing these games, you can chat with other players from around the world. This site is still active. You can even play online poker, Tom's favorite. The site says you need to be 16 to play, but I'm not sure if it is still set up so you can chat with other players. I didn't play a game, but I would assume so. From what I can tell, it looks like it is still a popular site and can now be played on your mobile devices. In 2001, the site was sold for $40 million.
Okay, so he's in online chat rooms, game rooms.
Yes. Tom set his username as Marine Sniper. He had been a Marine, but was never a sniper. For whatever sick reason, Tom decided to join a chat room for teens.
Had he any inclination towards that earlier in his past?
Not that I could find at all.
You said he had set his age to 18, so technically he's trying to portray himself as an 18-year-old.
Exactly.
But still super creepy.
It is.
Why not just do 20?
Yeah, and go in an adult room.
That's right.
It didn't take long before Tommy noticed another player who caught his eye. In May of 2005, he stumbled across the username Tall Hot Blonde. And a tall hot blonde she was. The girl behind the username was a 17-year-old girl from West Virginia named Jessica who went by Jessie. She was a senior in high school who was excited about prom. She played softball, she was cute, she was young, and she was exciting to an aging man in his mid-40s. Listeners, I don't have to say it. Y'all know me well enough by now to know my opinion on this situation.
Because she doesn't like age differences.
I don't mind age differences, but when someone is in their 40s and the other one is still a child at 17, that's where I take issue.
Yeah. The pedophile. Like legally, right?
She was 17 at the time.
But at 16 is consenting?
Depending. She's in West Virginia and he's in New York.
Oh, that really does muddy the waters then.
It does. She probably is of the age of consent, but if you're in your 40s and your girlfriend has teen at the end of her age, maybe not the greatest idea. But that's just my opinion.
Just give her a few years.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't take long before Tommy and Jessie began to send each other private messages. The more they got to know one another, the more their feelings grew.
It's every parent's worst nightmare.
Isn't it?
Ugh.
Yeah.
And our kids wonder why we monitor all their online stuff.
Right. And why we're always warning them about things because of cases like this.
Yeah.
Tommy told Jessie that he was awaiting deployment to Iraq. He told her about his battle scars. He also gained sympathy by telling Jessie that his mother had died from cancer when he was only 12 years old, and that he was following in his father's footsteps, who was also a military man.
It's creating a whole picture for her.
Mm-hmm.
So had he told her these things and then he wrote them down on his little list? Like as he went along? Or had he created this persona before he met her?
He created it before he met her.
Interesting. Okay, so it's not like he's telling her stuff in the moment and then having to write it down and keep track of it.
Well, I think at the beginning he had this persona that he wrote down on work paper and stored in his toolbox.
Right. I have a bullet wound here.
Yeah. And then I think as they began talking, he started to embellish on the story. Because I don't believe in the original paper that he had said that his mom died when he was 12 and his father was in the military.
Oh, okay.
So he's just building upon lie.
Right. He's making it more elaborate.
Yes. Well, he's got to keep the conversation going, so he has to keep creating new things.
New stories.
Yes. This next part, I honestly have no idea why he told Jessie this. But he, quote unquote, confided in his new love interest by telling her that when he was 17 and in high school, he raped a cheerleader from his school.
What?
Yeah. The face Melissa just made was the face I made when I read this. My guess is that he really did do this and wanted to see what she would say, or dreamt of doing it. Either way, he obviously felt free and emboldened, pretending to be someone else.
Yeah, that's a really weird statement to make.
I think he was trying to confide in her to gain her trust. Like, I feel so close to you, I'm going to tell you my deepest, darkest secret. And shockingly, Jessie said she forgave him for what he did and still wanted to continue talking with him. Was this a form of manipulation? Telling someone your darkest secret so they trust you? Tommy told Jessie that it was this experience that made him take a look at his life, and feeling lost, he joined the Marines. So kind of, I was a troubled teen. My mom died. I was all troubled. I raped this girl. And then I realized, what am I doing with my life? I have to join the Marines.
Okay. And she, being the nice person she is, wants to forgive him and help save him?
Right. Second chances for everyone.
Okay.
Because he's putting his life on the right track. He realized it's wrong. He's never going to do it again.
Now he's a hero.
Right.
Okay.
During the month of June, Tommy pretended to be taking part in a sniper training boot camp before getting deployed. He told Jesse that he would have limited access to the internet, so they would have to write one another letters. Yes, I have seen some of these letters, and yes, I'm going to share snippets of them in a little bit. In order to send one another messages, letters, and even packages while deployed, Tommy would need to enlist the help of his father, Tom. This next part can get a little confusing because now Tom was interacting with Jesse in two different ways. As the 18-year-old sniper Marine, Tommy, and as the middle-aged man, Tom Sr., Tommy's father. Just know that if I use any form of the name Tom, I'm talking about the same guy.
The dirtbag.
Yes.
Okay. But this would set her up so that he could actually meet her in person.
If he wanted to, as Tom, Tommy's father.
Right.
Yes. And this setup was easy for Jesse to believe because Tommy's pictures that he had sent to Jesse looked so similar to his father's photos. Almost like he was a carbon copy of his dad. She had no idea that her heartthrob Tommy and his father were, in fact, the same guy. No wonder they looked so much alike. Like, oh, you really look like your dad.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I do. But that can happen in families where you do have this little mini-me. The good thing about Tom Sr. helping them was that he had military ties in Iraq and could send messages and letters to his son from Jesse in a timely manner. He could help the young couple communicate when they otherwise wouldn't be able to.
So he creates this story of why what he's doing is out of the norm if somebody was actually serving.
Right. So does this all make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When Tommy was, quote unquote, unavailable in Iraq, Jesse would sometimes message Tom Sr. to discuss her relationship with his son. This ruse would also allow Jesse to send Tom letters and such right to his house because they would be addressed to Tom and not Tommy. I was wondering how Cindy, Tom's wife, wouldn't get suspicious. He must have been really good at getting to the mail first, but I'm unsure of the postal particulars. But this way, if a package came in for him, it was addressed Tom and not Tommy, where Cindy could get suspicious.
Okay. And was she ever suspicious this whole time?
As we go on, she starts to know that something's off with her husband, but can't pinpoint it until she finds out.
And by then it's too late.
What I found especially disturbing about this is that Tom was able to play both roles with Jesse. He could talk to her like a young boy in love, but then also treat her in the more fatherly, stern way as Tom Sr. I feel like that is extra messed up and so manipulative.
Just sick.
It is.
He's getting off on playing both roles?
I think so.
That's weird.
I agree.
Because you don't think about the same person in those ways. Like, I don't think about my love interest as my child.
Heavens no, I hope not. Don't call me mommy.
Right?
It's not the same for girls. We don't want to be your mom.
That's just weird.
It is. But I think he felt that he could help to steer the relationship how he wanted that way.
He could manipulate her better.
Right. Give her advice as Tommy's dad.
Don't want to go get a new boyfriend.
Right.
While he's away.
Yeah. And like, be kind to my son. As you might be expecting, before long, Tommy and Jesse became romantically involved with one another. Tommy told Jesse that she was the best thing that ever happened to him.
How many other children did he have?
Two daughters.
Oh, are they the same age?
I think his oldest was 4 years younger than Jesse. Jesse admitted that she felt the same way, that he was the best thing that had ever happened to her. He then admitted that he was originally planning to end his own life in Iraq. Jesse couldn't stand the thought and made her online boyfriend promise to come home alive for her. The pair continued to mail photos to one another. Tom dug out old photos of himself as a younger lad, and Jesse's photos started out as pictures of her in high school basketball and softball uniforms and eventual prom photos. As you might have guessed, soon the pics that she sent became more and more risque.
Had he requested those pictures, or she sent them freely?
I think she was sending them pretty freely.
Okay.
But he wasn't complaining about receiving them.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, they progressively had more and more skin. To me, that is sickening. She doesn't know she's sending these pictures to a man in his 40s.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing with the digital virtual world. You send your picture out there and you don't know who it's really going to.
True. But unfortunately, a lot of people aren't thinking that way. Because by now you're talking a couple months, you think you know them really well, you've gotten close. And they're sending pictures to you.
It's such an easy world to be manipulated in.
Yes. Like you said at the beginning, it's a slippery slope.
Mm-hmm.
The next step was talking on the phone together. Tommy had convinced Jesse that the only times he could talk on the phone was between 6:30 and 6:40 a.m., and then again between 3:30 and 3:40 p.m. when he wasn't on duty. In reality, I imagine this was just the safest time that he could talk on the phone without his family finding out. Perhaps right before work, and then again right before his daughters returned from school.
And she believed that he only had 2 10-minute periods a day off duty?
Yes, because he had gone away for sniper training. And so he was in a very strict regimen.
Okay.
So I have 10 minutes free time in the morning and then in the afternoon before I have to carry on my duties.
Had he purposely sought out a teenager because they might be more gullible to his lies?
I don't think he was planning for what happened to happen.
Okay.
I think he was just bored. I'm going to see what happens. And then I'm just having some fun. And then, oh, this is the tangled web that I have now woven.
Interesting.
But maybe. I don't know. I honestly don't think he was. I'm going to be a predator. I'm going to go find a teenage girl to prey on.
Okay.
But he didn't stop it. At one point, Jesse put together a video slideshow for Tommy of their pictures with the songs I'm Already There by Lone Star and I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith and sent it to Tommy. How romantic. If only she knew he was a married father of 2 who was more than twice her age. And if you go listen to these songs, it'll make you cringe thinking of this case. I played the songs and was thinking of her sending these pictures in a slideshow to him, and it just leaves you feeling pretty icky. But even that in and of itself is a 17-year-old thing to do.
Yeah, it sounds like she's completely infatuated.
Tom was continuing his day-to-day life with work, Cindy, and the kids, but looked forward to the time he could spend with Jesse online. Soon, all of his free time was spent in front of the computer, well into the latest hours of the day. Cindy was just a distraction and in his perverted way. As Jesse began sending Tommy increasingly provocative pictures of herself, gross 45-year-old Tom began to feel a little insecure. He started to worry that perhaps his tall, hot blonde was sending the same pictures to other guys. Letting his ego get the better of him, he flat out accused Jesse of doing this exact thing. He knew that a girl as beautiful as she was had to have more admirers than just him.
Maybe even some her own age?
Yeah. Jessie was horrified that Tommy would think that of her. So in an attempt to reassure him, she mailed to him a sterling silver key to my heart keychain, plus a pair of her G-string underwear. Tommy said he forgave her, but Tom, pretend Tommy's pretend father, gave her a hard time about it. When Jessie messaged her boyfriend's father and said Tommy had let it go and asked why he couldn't just do the same, he responded to her, quote, because you will hurt him and he's an idiot and will believe your lying butt. So totally trying to manipulate her.
And so now she's going to be even more apt to do whatever he wants because she's feeling guilty, even though she has nothing to feel guilty about.
Exactly. And now my love is growing for Tommy because he has been so sweet about it, but I have to prove my love to Tom Sr., Tommy's dad. I don't want the bad things that he's thinking about me to be true.
Right.
Despite Tom not being as forgiving as his son, Tommy and Jessie's relationship continued to evolve. They first started to chat in March, and by Christmas of that same year, they were smitten with one another. So much so that Tommy decided to pop the big question.
What? How's he going to pull this off?
I don't know what he was thinking.
They haven't even met?
No.
It's just so sad because she is so young and naive and thinking that this is just how a normal relationship goes. But it's totally not.
It's not.
Is it wrong to call her naive? But that's
No,
what it is.
It's not. Tommy asked Jessie to marry him on Christmas Day, and Jessie said yes. So the two were now engaged. Meanwhile, in actuality, Tom is already married with 2 kids.
Where is he going with this? Like, do you honestly think it was just one lie built upon another, and now it's rolling so much he can't stop the boulder?
He did have a plan on how he was going to get out of this. His original plan was that when Tommy goes to Iraq, I'm going to have him killed off. And Tom, his father, can let her know.
And he's hoping that he can swoop in and still maintain the relationship? Or no, he's going to call it all off then?
Yeah, that's his get out of jail free card.
Okay. So he's not actually planning on leaving his wife and going and meeting this person and...
Not at first, but those feelings do evolve.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
Because it's all an imaginary world.
Exactly.
Where there's no consequences.
So originally he thought, I'm going to get out of this. But as we go on, he doesn't want to get out of it.
No, because it's like an addiction.
It's 100% an addiction. It was taking over his life. He knew that he was married and had 2 kids, but he wasn't going to let this get in his way. Tommy had poinsettias delivered to his new fiancée, and Jessie mailed Tommy personalized dog tags that had Tom and Jessie always and forever engraved into them. She also sent him more of her G-string underwear. And I wrote, yuck.
I'm thinking if she was actually sending it to her 18-year-old boyfriend, then okay, I guess.
Oh, no problem in doing that. It's the fact that he's a 45-year-old man. And she thinks he's 18.
Right. What's he doing with all this underwear? Where is he hiding it that his wife is not finding it?
Oh, he has it stashed. He has it hidden. Along with all the photos and the letters.
And the dog tags.
Yes, all of this. And the keychain. Just has it in his little special Jessie box, I guess. The two were already sending one another piles of letters, messages, and emails. But it didn't take long, especially with Jessie's provocative photos and actual G-strings for their conversation to turn sexual. I will spare you the gross details because after learning of some of the things they were saying, I honestly felt like I needed to take a shower. They were very explicit about exactly what they were going to do with certain body parts. Jessie said it would be her first time when they finally met in person, but they were definitely now having cyber sex. They would both write Jessie's name in letters with the last name Montgomery in anticipation of when she could officially take his last name in marriage. One of her letters she ended with, quote, "Won't be long until it's Jessica Blair Montgomery."
Ugh.
Mm-hmm.
So they hadn't already started cyber sex before she sent him underwear?
It was a gradual progression, but once it got hot and steamy, it was hot and steamy. As the new year approached, Tom decided to make himself a little resolution. On work stationery, he wrote on January 2nd, 2006, that Tom Montgomery, who was now 46 years of age, was ceasing to exist and was being replaced with an 18-year-old battle-scarred Marine named Tommy.
What?
He wrote about Tommy, quote, "He is moving to West Virginia to be with the love of his life." He said he would still take care of Cindy and his girls financially, but was totally enamored with the imagined life that he wanted with Jessie.
He's getting delusional now.
He is. He's starting to think that this could actually happen.
Like he's developed almost a second personality.
Yes, and an obsession with this relationship.
Right.
But Tom was not stupid. He knew he wasn't actually 18, nor an active sniper Marine, but he could not let go of this fantasy that he had created. He even began to tell his coworkers that he was going to leave Cindy and move to West Virginia to be with his new love. It was said that he couldn't stop talking about her.
So now more people are getting involved.
Mm-hmm.
And Cindy still doesn't know?
Well, Cindy knew that something was up with her husband, but didn't know exactly what. He had pulled away and spent every waking hour that he could in front of the computer. Tom had been carrying on this whole secret relationship for over 9 months before Cindy stumbled upon the truth.
How did she find out?
Well, in February of 2006, Cindy found some of the things that Jessie had sent to her husband.
Oh, she found his treasure box.
She did. She was sickened to read the letters, look at Jessie's photographs, and to see a teenage girl's underwear in her husband's possession.
Just a few years older than her own daughter.
Yes. Can you even imagine? The fact that we are not discussing the murder charge for killing Tom is a miracle. She honestly handled this situation like a queen. Because as a wife and mother, you would see red.
Oh, yeah.
Cindy confronted Tom about his secret love affair with a teenager. She was shocked that he was pretending to be not only an 18-year-old boy, but also this 18-year-old boy's father. She told him that they had to separate and the lying had to stop. They agreed to separate and Tom moved into the basement. As you can rightfully imagine, this entire scenario did not sit right with Cindy. She was a mother and actually felt maternal towards Jesse, if you will. She felt like she needed to warn Jesse about her husband and let her know what she had gotten herself into, that Tom had catfished her. Cindy decided to write Jesse a letter. In the letter, she included a recent photograph of her family, Tom with Cindy and their 2 daughters, now ages 12 and 14. In this letter, Jesse said about the photo, quote, "Let me introduce you to these people. The man in the center is Tom, my husband since 1986. He is 46 years old." She explained that Tommy and Tom Sr. were both her husband, Tom, catfishing her. Jesse had been sending emails to Tom's email address that was TC Montgomery 1. Cindy explained to her that the TC in front of Montgomery was for Tom and Cindy.
Oh, ouch.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that would be awful.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Cindy continued to say to Jesse, quote, "From what I am pulling from your letters, you are much closer to my daughter's age than mine, let alone Tom's." She then asked Jesse if she was even over 18, because if not, Tom could be prosecuted as a child predator. She tells Jesse that she is young enough to be one of her daughters and then cautions her, quote, "Do not trust words on a computer. Let this go. You will only be hurt by a man who has mastered the art of manipulation and lies."
Good for her.
I thought so too. She found Jesse's address by one of the envelopes from the letters that she had sent and was thinking, I have to warn this girl. And what I appreciated about that too is she wasn't angry at Jesse. She knew that Jesse was a victim in this and just genuinely wanted to help her.
Right.
Not get away from my husband, but more, hey, just so you know. When Jesse received this letter and the family photo from Cindy, she was shocked. She didn't want to believe that her fiancé, Tommy, was lying to her. She needed proof. Jesse remembered that Tommy told her he worked with one of the other guys who played poker with them on the Pogo site, a guy with the username Beefcake1572. Jesse reached out to Beefcake1572 to see if he could confirm this startling information. Beefcake1572 was an actual 22-year-old man named Brian Barrett. He was a college student at Buffalo State College. He worked at the Dynabraid factory part-time to help put himself through school. He knew Tom. They did work together and also played poker online. He confirmed Cindy's letter and informed Jesse that her young and fit Marine sniper was a boring middle-aged man.
Oh, she would probably be so heartbroken.
She was, and so Brian offered Jesse comfort online, and the two began to chat more frequently. Their chats increased also in intensity. It didn't take long before Tall Hot Blonde and Beefcake also became intimate with one another online, a decision that would end tragically for Brian.
Oh, Tom's going to get jealous.
Mm-hmm.
And he has easy access to him because they work together.
Exactly. Upset by Tom's trickery, Jesse and Brian began targeting Tom as a predator in their public chats. They even managed to get him banned from a few of them.
Good. He needs to be.
He does. Brian would allegedly log into Jesse's account and pretend to be her to mess with Tom, to string him along and give him a glimmer of hope. At the same time, Jesse told Tom that she hated him and that he should be put in jail for what he did. Before long, Brian let it slip at work about what type of man they were working with. In one of his private messages to Jesse, Brian said about Tom, quote, "Half the company thought he was a effing loser and predator."
I'm surprised only half.
Yeah, me too. But who knows what lies Tom was saying. Tom decided to reach back out to Jesse and tried to manipulate her feelings by laying on the guilt. He told her that he was contemplating ending his own life over everything that happened. He said to her, quote, "You can say goodbye forever to me and Tommy." Jesse was upset that Tom had lied to her, but deep down in her heart, she said she still loved Tommy. She said to him, quote, "If he existed, I would still be holding him every night and sharing my dreams with him every night. I ache to be with Tommy." Tom replied to her that he was Tommy. Tommy was still inside of him.
In a 40-year-old body.
Yeah, pushing 50 now.
And a 50-year-old should know better than this.
Yeah, it should never have gotten to this. And he should have just left it be. But Jesse was won over and agreed to rekindle their romance and end things with Brian. However, Tom wasn't the only liar in their relationship. Jesse told Tom that she would end things with Brian, but decided to continue her relationship with Brian online while still involved with Tom. I read some of the messages between Brian and Jessie, and they got pretty R-rated as well. I guess Jessie thought she would just live her best life, and perhaps she didn't think it was that big of a deal since it was all online. She was messing with the feelings of two different men.
Which would create a dangerous situation for them.
Right. And it did. This love triangle carried on for some time until Brian talked Jessie into making their relationship public. Of course, Tom found out about this and became irate. He told Brian that he couldn't believe that he would choose a girl over their friendship and told him about Jessie, quote, "You wanted her, you got her. Just tell her to leave me alone." This married grown man was upset that his teenage online girlfriend was picking a boy closer to her own age.
So he's pouting.
Yeah, having a little tantrum. As you can imagine, tensions grew at the workplace. One employee brought a bulletproof vest to work as a joke because of how tense it was getting. Everyone was becoming aware of the rivalry between the two power tool plant employees.
Poor Cindy. So everybody knows all this is going on now?
Yes.
Has she kicked him to the curb?
They're still separated and he's living in the basement. I don't know if financially they could afford for him to move out yet.
Okay. Poor Cindy.
But they are technically separated. But still, yes, I agree. Poor Cindy. And his children.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wonder if, did his children, were they aware of what he was doing? That he was hanging out with another teenager online?
They become aware. I don't know at what point.
Okay.
Tom directed his anger into working out, something he hadn't done in years. He couldn't sleep, and all he could think about was the tall, hot blonde who had captured his heart and made him feel young again. Brian ended up making plans to go visit his online girlfriend and was vocal at work about his plans of getting intimate with Jessie. Tom was made aware of what was happening. However, when Brian made plans to go to West Virginia to see Jessie, she freaked out and told him not to come. And this tells me she was totally playing games, making these men think that not only was she having cyber sex with them, but that she wanted to have in-person sex with them as well. Because as soon as he was like, "Hey, I'm going to come see ya," she's like, no, don't come.
Right. You're so much braver online.
Yes.
And that's what's so scary about it, is that there's no accountability when you're online.
No, you can be whoever you want to be and tell whatever lies you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe spooked, at this point she turned back to Tom and promised once more that she was going to break up with Brian. Tom threatened Jessie that something bad would happen if she ever lied to him again. He told her that Brian would, quote, "pay in blood." Things rekindled quickly, and their online chats got extremely hot and steamy. Hot enough to make even a sex therapist blush. Despite the juicy conversations, Tom was still on edge and continued to threaten Jessie if she ever betrayed him again. Sadly, Jessie called his bluff and started talking online with Brian once again. Tom found out about what was happening near the end of the summer in 2006. He saw red. Jessie tried to smooth things over with Tom, but he grew in his anger and animosity towards her and Brian. He obviously didn't see the hypocrisy of him getting upset with Jessie for talking to other guys online when he had a whole wife and kids when he started talking to her. How did he think his actions made his family feel? For weeks, Jessie tried to calm Tom down, but to no avail. I assume feeling frightened or growing bored of the situation, she decided to ghost her sniper marine lover. But being ignored just fueled Tom's rage. He believed that Jessie loved him, even after discovering the real him, because she kept stringing him along, even while she was talking to Brian. On September 13th, 2006, Tom sent Jessie a message at 1:33 in the morning saying, quote, "You're a whore, and that's all you will ever be." She responded, quote, "I am leaving now." He tried to send her more messages, but she ignored him. The next day, September 14th, he sent her more vile messages and got graphic about what she was likely doing to Brian sexually. Again, no response.
It's an interesting turn. So he's really getting obsessive then. He's imagining her and Brian together, and so now he's verbalizing that through texting.
Yes. He's fixating on what those two could be doing together and what he's not going to get to do with her.
Right. Which is just going to drive his anger more.
Right. The following day, September 15th, Tom called Jessie in the early morning hours, waking her up. She answered, and he just started screaming at her and unleashing his rage. Jessie hung up on him. Tom decided that if Brian was standing in the way of his relationship with Jessie, he was going to eliminate the problem. And he wasted no time. Sadly, Brian would be dead by the end of that day.
Wow.
Either out of his obsession or call it premeditation, Tom had been asking around regarding Brian's work schedule. On this day, Brian was working a later shift. He clocked out at 10:16 p.m. and headed out to the Dinah Braid parking lot to go home. Brian got into his white pickup truck, I believe a Ford Ranger, and got situated to drive off. Brian had parked in a more secluded area of the parking lot, and Tom had been waiting. Tom was wearing camouflage clothing and a ski mask on his face. Before Brian could put his truck into drive, Tom walked up to the driver's side window and shot 3 times with his .30 caliber carbine rifle. Bullets pierced Brian's neck and upper arm. He slumped over towards the passenger side seat. He was dead.
What a dirtbag.
Yeah, this poor boy was 22 and literally had his whole life in front of him.
All over a delusion that he had created.
Yes. But now he knew Jessie knew his real age and was thinking this can still happen.
Right, because she's still stringing him along, knowing his real age.
Yes. It should never have gotten this far. Tom had reportedly told another coworker leading up to this frightful day that if he ever did kill someone, he wouldn't be stupid enough to leave any bullet casings at the scene. He collected the casings and then left.
So that speaks to premeditation then.
I think so.
How much before the shooting had he spoken to this coworker?
All of this was taking place about 2 weeks before, that he was starting to check when Brian's working, talking about murder and guns and that type of thing.
Wow.
But I don't know necessarily that he had the specific day planned until things went really bad, till she hung up on him.
Right. And then he's seeing red and he just has to do something right now.
Right. But she had said later that she couldn't even understand what he was saying. He was screaming so incoherently.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
But conveniently, he already knew his work schedule ahead of time.
Yes. And unfortunately, Brian had parked in a more secluded area of the parking lot and he was working the late shift. So Tom knew this is the perfect opportunity. Soon after Tom returned home, he began messaging Jessie. Just before midnight, he taunted her by asking her if she was waiting for her boyfriend, meaning Brian. At 2:15 a.m., he sent her another message. He tried to entice her to message him back by saying, quote, "Come on, CW, your Brian won't mind you talking to me." He knew this because he had just killed him a few hours earlier, and Jessie had no idea yet.
It's cruel.
It is. We have a lot more shocking details to get into, but first I want to take a quick minute to tell you more about who Brian was. Brian Michael Barrett was born on February 1st, 1984 in Williamsville, Erie County, New York. He was only 22 years old at the time of his death and worked part-time for the past 4 years at the power tool plant to earn extra money. I read that he was working towards becoming an industrial arts teacher. Brian had already earned a 2-year associate's degree from Erie Community College, but then transferred to Buffalo State College to become a teacher. And Brian would have made a wonderful teacher. He was said to be friendly and caring, often with a smile on his face. He also had a sweet, quiet side to him. Brian loved kids. During the summer months, he coached Little League Baseball and helped his dad coach a soccer team. He had attended Starpoint High School and was quite the athlete. The school's athletic director there said about Brian, quote, "He was just a nice kid, a gentleman. I don't think anybody could say a bad thing about him." During school, Brian played football, but excelled at baseball. As far as I know, he still holds the school record for the longest home run. After he graduated, he continued to play ball in a midget league and was voted MVP, Most Valuable Player. He had 2 loving parents, Daniel and Deborah, and 2 younger brothers. Because he was going to school, Brian still lived with his parents. His room had sports posters on the walls, along with pictures of him and his brothers. He also had some of his sports trophies neatly displayed. Brian was young and full of life. Earlier that year, he went skydiving for the first time, but only told his parents after he did it so that they wouldn't worry about him.
Oh, he sounds like such a kid.
He was. Brian was an attractive young man with a kind heart. His grandpa called him the nickname Lurch because he was so tall and strong, but also shy.
He sounds just so sweet.
He really was. He was a good person.
And all this because he got wrapped up in an online world.
Yep. It's so sad. Because Brian was shot late in the evening and at the end of shift, his body wasn't found for 2 days, not until people started to show up for work on the morning of September 17th. This timeline was a bit confusing, but I'm fairly certain that this is how it happened. He was discovered on the 17th, which is what is listed as his death date. It didn't take long for police to learn from the other employees at Dynabraid that there had been an extremely contentious love triangle involving Brian, Tom, and a tall, hot blonde.
Because it was the office gossip going around.
Oh, they were very vocal about it. Police found Jesse's phone number and Brian's cell phone and quickly pieced things together. They knew that their first priority needed to be to make sure that Jesse was safe. Could she be the next target if Tom was the culprit? Lieutenant Ron Kenyon from the local Erie County Police immediately called Jesse's number. Thankfully, she answered and confirmed that she was in relationships with Tom and Brian. Police told her that she might be in danger. Next, they contacted the West Virginia police to send officers to her home in Oak Hill to check on her. Officer J.L. Kirk quickly arrived at Jesse's home. They were taking no chances. A 22-year-old man had just been shot at close range over this love triangle, and they were genuinely concerned for Jesse's well-being.
And they're like 2 days behind the 8 ball.
Yes.
So anything could happen. No wonder they were terrified.
They were.
To see what had happened to her.
Thankfully, they knew at the time that she was alive when they called, because she had answered. When Officer Kirk knocked, Jesse's mother, Mary Schuyler, answered the door. She told the officer that her daughter wasn't home, but that she would be back home shortly. The officer thought this was weird because he knew that the police in New York had just spoken to Jesse at the house. It didn't take much pressing before the jig was up. Mary burst into tears. Teenage Jessica Schuyler was not the person who had been involved with Tom or Brian. She was a real person, but Jesse online, who was involved with Tom and Brian, was actually her mother, Mary, pretending to be her, who was now caught in a web of lies.
Okay, this makes so much more sense of why she would string along Tom now.
Yes, I was shocked when I learned this. And the officers were too. Officer Kenyon, who had spoken to Mary on the phone, said he had no idea. He said she sounded like and spoke just like you would expect an 18-year-old girl to. Being polite, let me just say that Mary was not the type of person whom you would describe as a tall, hot blonde at all. She was a middle-aged woman of 45. Based on dirtbaggery and looks, balding Tom and scheming Mary physically looked perfect for one another. Let's just say that neither one of them are winning any beauty contests. And I can say that because they're dirtbags.
Harsh, Christy. But they're dirtbags, so you're right. It's okay. Is it okay? I don't know.
I just mean they looked opposite of what they were putting themselves out there online to look like.
Right.
The ultimate catfishing. Tom was a catfish, but had no idea that he too was being catfished. I would seriously pay to have seen little Marine Sniper Tommy's face when he found out that Jessie, the teenage girl that he had online sex with, was actually her mother. I believe Mary had even sent Tom a family photo of her and her husband with their daughter Jessie and their other child. He just didn't know that he wasn't actually talking to the tall, hot blonde in the picture, but that he was talking to the short, plain-looking, middle-aged mother. Although this is hilarious, it is sickening at the same time.
Yeah, because poor Brian lost his life over 2 people carrying on delusional online lives.
Absolutely. He was the only innocent one in this love triangle. And Mary, being a catfish, meant that she had been using her daughter to arouse strange men on the internet. She had taken pictures and video of her daughter and sent them to Brian and Tom. Worse than that, the G-string undies that she mailed to Tom did originally belong to her daughter.
What?
She took on her daughter's life as her online persona.
That is a sick mother.
Yeah, her name was even Jessie. That's what they called her. Jessie, in real life, had worked as a lifeguard. So Mary sent many photos of her teenage daughter in a swimsuit, as well as skimpy clothing that she wore in the safety of her own home. If her daughter's skin was showing, she grabbed her camera.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. When the truth came to light, Mary admitted that Brian and Tom were not the only men that she sent pictures and videos to.
Of her daughter.
Yes. It was later discovered that Mary had even taken a video up Jessie's skirt without her knowing and sent that off to several men online and asked them if they liked it.
Please tell me that this dirtbag does jail time.
She does not.
What?
None.
She's not charged?
No. And we're going to talk about it.
She just exploited her own daughter.
She did. I cannot even imagine as a mom, you need to protect your daughter, not be exploiting her sexually.
That is just wild.
Yeah, 2 words, dirt bag.
Yeah.
Shockingly, Mary was described as a good mother.
No way, she's not.
She's not, but that's what people thought. She was very close with her daughter, Jessie, and did everything for her. Jessie and Mary's husband had no idea about her online escapades.
She did everything for her so that she could get close and get pictures.
I don't know. Aside from this, they were said to have a good relationship.
One built on lies.
Yeah, she totally was taking advantage of her daughter. It's sickening.
It's just, ugh.
Yeah, it is.
Like, however much you said about Tom hitting on an 18-year-old, it is so much more gross for the mother to be sending pictures to older men knowingly.
Yes, of her daughter.
Yes.
It would be one thing if she had done what Tom did and pulled out old photos of herself or even just searched some photos online. But she was thinking, oh, I have access to my tall, hot blonde daughter, and I'm just going to take pictures as I need to. And even stealing her underwear and mailing them.
That is gross. Like, that is more of a dirtbag than what Tom was doing.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely.
Not that we often rate dirtbags, but man, I'm shocked. She had to have done some time. A fine, slap on the wrist. Her daughter hates her now.
I'm going to talk about it. But no, she does no jail time.
Ugh.
Mary was said to be the best cheerleader for her kids.
She's an accomplice.
Okay, I'm going to give Melissa a minute to just bash Mary. Go.
She should have served some time.
I agree.
Her actions led to another person losing their life.
It's true. I 100% agree with you. And so do a lot of other people. That's why I'm saying we need to talk about stuff like this because there needs to be laws implemented to protect people from people like Mary, let alone Tom.
Like, not that she should be held accountable for murder, but I don't know, something.
Well, she played a hand in it.
Well, first of all, she needs to be held accountable for exploiting her daughter.
Yes.
That is like number one.
Mm-hmm.
But then her actions led to another person killing somebody.
Right.
So did she know that that's what Tom's plans were?
No.
And that's how she doesn't get charged with that.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, she's a dirtbag.
She is.
Mary, you're a dirtbag, wherever you are. I hope you know that.
And a disgusting human being for doing that to your daughter, the person you're supposed to protect. And that's what's so infuriating about it.
Yeah. I can't imagine putting pictures out on the internet because you don't know where they go. Once you send them, you don't have control over who shares them with what.
Nope.
Of your daughter.
Taking a video up her skirt without her knowing. It's such a violation.
That is crazy. Yeah, she needs to spend some jail time, at least for that. I can understand how she got away with not an accomplice for murder, but that's crazy.
It's really sad that she doesn't get charged.
Poor Jessie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're going to talk about Jessie. We're going to wrap it all up together. But a little bit more about Mary before we do that.
Because she's a dirtbag.
She is. But she had everybody fooled. Mary was said to be the best cheerleader for her kids. She was always at Jessie's basketball and softball games.
So she kept pictures?
She did. She only had ever missed one when she was working an election. Speaking of work, Mary had been doing clerical work at the high school where her children attended. Mary's motive was much like Tom's. She was bored and lonely and turned to the internet for attention and adventure. This also explains why she continued to toy with Tom's emotions even after she had learned about his true identity. Mary said that she had joined the Pogo site where she met these men, initially just to relax and kill time. When she upgraded to the paid membership, she realized that she had registered with her daughter's screen name. Because she was logged in as her daughter, she was directed to a teen chat room, and so Mary decided to check it out. This is where she noticed Marine Sniper and eventually sent him a message. So she reached out first.
Yeah, but what about all the other men she was sending pictures to?
Oh, she was sending it to lots. And even for her to send that video of under her daughter's skirt and say, "Do you like it?" She's wanting to sexually arouse these men with her daughter's body.
Oh, I just can't even imagine.
No, it's terrible. For Mary, she was having fun. She said that Brian was a quote-unquote sweetheart. She said she started out just flirting with him, but then didn't know how to stop it. When it came to Tommy, she felt like he was, quote, a child who needed someone to show him they cared. Not you, Mary. No one but your family needed this from you. Mary insisted that she wasn't in love with any of the men she was toying with online. She claimed that she loved her husband, whom she had been married for 23 years to at this point.
But she was just bored.
Yep. It was exciting. Like you said, that dopamine hit.
Mm-hmm. Take up a new hobby.
Yes.
Knit blankets for NICUs. Visit the elderly. I don't know. Take up a freaking hobby.
Or do something that's only going to affect you. Don't toy with people like this. This was not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
When asked about why she continued to interact with Tom after she found out that he was a grown man, she tried to make it sound like she did it to protect real teenage girls. She figured that if she stopped talking to him, he would find a different young girl to talk to. How noble of you, Mary.
Wait, so when she's catfishing him, he said he was 18.
Yes.
So she wasn't protecting 18-year-old boys or teenage boys from older women. She was okay with that dynamic going on, but she was putting it out there that she had to protect young girls from older men.
Yep, total hypocrite.
Yeah, she's just making that crap up.
Oh, totally. She's just trying to come out looking better than she was.
Yeah.
Oh, I had to, or he would have talked to somebody else.
We already know from her behavior that she's a deceitful liar.
Oh, yeah, she's a disgusting human being. Because of her, Brian is no longer here on Earth.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, even though Mary had sexually exploited her daughter, she hadn't technically committed any crime. Most places do not have laws against catfishing in place.
She exploited her daughter. Exploitation is a crime.
When they examined the case, they could not charge her with it.
Child exploitation.
Definitely child exploitation is a thing. I don't know if because of Jesse's age or whatever circumstance it was happening, they could not charge her. They wanted to. So if they could have charged her, they would have.
That's just crazy to me.
It is. I think there really needs to be laws in place against this type of thing, especially when stealing the persona of an actual person and when that person is a teenager. Mary is just as disgusting as Tom, in my opinion, and every bit as responsible for what happened to Brian. And sadly, the law doesn't see it that way.
She's more. Because at least he was representing himself as he used to be.
Yeah.
She's staging as her daughter.
Yes. And I do think most people who catfish pretend to be someone who they're not. I don't think they're necessarily pulling from their younger self, but it adds that extra layer of insult to injury when it is her daughter, because there's that extra betrayal.
Absolutely.
That extra trust is broken. Prosecutor Ken Case said about Mary, quote, "Shame on her. He believed that she played a part in provoking what happened to Brian." He continued to say, quote, "Unfortunately, in New York State, you have to do something more to be criminally liable."
Which I get. I get how she got off of the murder charge or an accomplice for murder.
Mm-hmm. Brian's family have been petitioning to have laws for situations like this put into place, so it would be illegal to do what Mary did. I am unsure what, if anything, has come of this yet. I don't think there has. But hopefully I'm wrong. I guess you could say, though, that Mary didn't go 100% unpunished. When Mary's husband found out, he promptly divorced his dirtbag wife. I cannot imagine how irate he would have been and how betrayed he would have felt. Not only was she cheating on him, but she was using her daughter for her own perverted thrills. Mary knew that she was making men fantasize about her daughter and even pleasure themselves to the things she was saying to them, pretending to be her. Your sex life, on or off screen, should never have even the slightest connection to your child. This is truly sickening.
It's just so gross.
It is. It's so wrong. As I mentioned, Mary and her daughter Jessie were the best of friends. Being the coward that she is, Mary did not initially fess up to her daughter, even after being caught.
What?
I read that Jessie just so happened to read an article about a 22-year-old man's death, a man named Brian Barrett. As she read the article, she came across her mother's name as well as her own, and I believe a photo of Jessie had even been published in this article.
They didn't even make it enough of an issue that the kids noticed that she was being interviewed by police or anything like that?
Nope. She'd kept it from her daughter, and what a horrible way for her to find out, by looking in the paper or reading an article.
So now she has to wonder how many people have pictures and video of my genitals.
Oh, it would be sickening. I think they were always covered. I don't think there was any nude photos, but Definitely. I saw some photos that were blurred out and, in a little lingerie nightie that she was wearing or things like that, in her little swimsuits.
Something that she would always wear in public anyway?
No, around her house, in the safety of her own home. There was even photos where she was laying down and had her hands like in her beautiful hair, and Mary had taken a picture and just cropped it to look more sexualized than it was. She knew exactly what she was doing. From the information I could find, it sounds like Jessica, or Jessie, has cut her mother out of her life completely, a decision she has every right to make. She was a victim of her mother's cheap, perverted ploy. I am unsure if Mary's other child has anything to do with her, but I would think all trust would be broken within their family. I think they've all just left her in the past.
It would just rock them to the core, though. It's one thing to just cut them out, but then you have to deal with the ramifications of that.
Totally.
It's huge. It's not just, we're not going to have contact with her.
Oh, yeah. I hope that they're getting the help that they need or have.
It's just so sad.
It really is. There were so many extra victims in this case. There's Tom's family, there's Mary's family, and Brian's family. And I hope they're all healing and doing well. This was not a harmless thing that they were doing.
No. It affected so many lives.
So many. And children too, which is just disturbing. Back in New York, police began investigating their main suspect, Thomas Montgomery. They were questioning multiple employees at the plant, but were quickly directed to Tom. Tom at this time still had no idea that his sweet, innocent Jessie was actually Mary. Thankfully, this case was pretty easy to solve. Tom hadn't been the brightest dirtbag that we've ever covered. He had made comments about leaving his wife to be with Jessie. He had been speaking about guns more often with his coworkers. He was talking about murder and was very vocal regarding his disdain for Brian. While police were questioning him at work, Tom went and got his lunch from his car. He said he needed to get it so his peach wouldn't spoil. What he hadn't pieced together was that the police had found a fresh peach pit next to Brian's truck. What a coincidence. To no surprise, the DNA on the peach pit would turn out to match Tom's DNA profile.
He ate a peach while he was waiting for him to show up?
Yeah, he got hungry and had a little snack.
Wow.
Tom hadn't willingly given police his DNA to test, but he did accept a Mountain Dew pop from them to drink during his questioning, which gave them his DNA.
Right, because then he threw it out afterwards and they just collected it?
Yep. Yeah, not the sharpest tool in the shed. Also near the crime scene, police found a leather cartridge case for bullets with a dog hair in it. Any guesses whose dog the hair belonged to?
Tommy's?
Yep. It was the Montgomery's family dog Shadow's hair. At the Montgomery home, police found Jessie's underwear, photos, and letters, plus hundreds and hundreds of racy emails and instant messages between Tom and Jessie, or should I say Mary. They also found multiple threatening messages from Tom to Brian. The biggest questionable piece of evidence was when they found a picture of the inside of Tom's gun case. In the photo, there was a .30 caliber rifle, but when police inspected the case, the rifle was missing. The same caliber rifle used to kill Brian. All that was left in the gun case was a handbook for the rifle.
He didn't even try to hide anything, hey?
Well, he got rid of the gun.
Right.
I don't think it was ever retrieved. It was only because they had found a picture of what the inside of the gun case looked like before that they knew, hey, in this photo, there's a .30 caliber rifle. Where is that?
Got you.
But all that was left was the handbook for the rifle. And so when they questioned him about that, he was saying, well, I can't afford the rifle, but I just got the handbook so
yeah,
far.
Right.
Yeah. There was photo evidence that he did own that rifle. By November 27th, police had enough solid evidence to arrest Tom and charge him with second-degree murder. Of course, he denied having anything to do with Brian's death. Brian had been shot after he clocked out from work at 10:16 p.m. Tom told police that he had eaten at a nearby restaurant that night and returned home between 10 and 10:10 p.m., so it couldn't possibly have been him. Tom was still living in the basement of the home he shared with Cindy and his daughters. Cindy was able to inform police, when asked, that Tom was not home at the time he said he was. He arrived home a minimum of 30 minutes later than he claimed.
Just enough time to shoot Brian.
Yep, and get home. Police pulled Tom's cell phone records, which proved he was in the vicinity of Dinah Braid at the time of the shooting. Tom had also made a verbal slip-up during a phone call with Cindy after he was arrested. He alluded to the fact that the cartridge case was his. Tom was held at the Erie County Holding Center in Buffalo. The following April, Tom allegedly received a letter from his 2 daughters that stated that they never wanted to see him again. They wanted nothing to do with him. Cindy also expressed her intent to file for divorce, because they had still just been separated up until this time. It is said that Tom tried to commit suicide after this. Tom insisted that he was innocent. He said that Brian had a lot of enemies, and that he was actually happy for Jessie and Brian at first. He said he was glad that Jessie found someone her own age.
That's why he was freaking out at work, that somebody wanted to wear a bulletproof vest.
Yeah, total lies. Or hogwash, as we would call it. Thankfully, after turning down the first offer for a plea deal, Tom eventually realized that he was not going to walk free from his actions. There was too much evidence stacked up against him, so he decided to give in and take a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to the murder of Brian Barrett in August of 2007 and took a 20-year sentence for first-degree manslaughter. Tom was given his sentencing in October, and by that time, he was claiming that his lawyers had coerced him into taking the deal. But at the same time, he said he did it to spare his wife and children the embarrassment of a trial. But Tom was selfish and asked to have his plea deal reversed. Tom's request to reverse his plea was denied, and he was sentenced to 20 years in prison, plus 5 years of probation afterwards. And if I'm doing my math right, Tom can be released soon. He was sentenced in 2007.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Always weird to think that these dirtbags that we talk about could be actually out on the street again.
It's true. And that's not that far off. At his sentencing, Tom just stared downward at the table in front of him and didn't show any emotion. Daniel, Brian's father, was able to give a victim impact statement. Part of this statement read, quote, "My wife and I don't understand how this could happen to our family. We don't understand how such evil could exist in the world. To gun down a boy over simple jealousy does not make sense."
It doesn't.
Really does not. Investigators commented that when Tom would talk about Jessie, he would become sentimental and romantic. Even still.
Ooh, gross.
He did eventually speak about what happened. He explained that he was in a dead-end job that was slowly sucking the life out of him. He said he was drifting farther and farther away from his wife, Cindy. He admitted that it was easier to talk to strangers online than it was to speak to her. Cindy and Tom were not only drifting apart emotionally, but physically. It was said that Tom was impotent, a fact that made an online relationship that much more enticing.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. When Tom met Tall Hot Blonde, he said, quote, "I kept thinking, well, we're never going to meet. I'll just play the game with her." He continued to explain that the feelings eventually became real. He said that talking to people face to face was hard. It was hard to tell Cindy how he felt. But when he became Tommy, the words flowed easily. He never expected it to get so serious between him and Jessie. Initially, he planned to kill Tommy off in Iraq, as I said. If true, this is likely why he had created Tom Sr. to be able to tell her. He said that Cindy found out and intervened before he made that happen. If he would have eventually done it, I don't know. I honestly don't think he was going to. Tom admitted that his relationship with Jessie became more real than the long-time relationship that he had with his wife. He said that they had confessed their love for one another. He said it started out as flirting but grew from there. Tom said that there was virtual sex going on between Jessie and Tommy. He said it made him feel kind of quote-unquote dirty, but that he was in too deep to stop. He said, quote, "If I was smart, I would have just ended it, but it was like a drug that I needed every day." So like you said, it was becoming an addiction for him. Tom claimed that the sexual part of their relationship ended after she found out he was a grown man with a wife and 2 teenage kids. But this was clearly a lie when you read their messages.
Yeah, it sounded like it went on way longer than that, even after Cindy had let Jessie know what was up.
It did. He couldn't argue the evidence right in front of him.
But he tried.
He tried.
He forgot he wasn't living in the virtual made-up world.
That's right. This is for realsies.
It is scary how slippery a slope it is.
Yeah.
And just how caught up people get and forget that that's not real life. Like, no wonder it's so much easier online, because it's not real life.
Right. And if you took 1/10 of the attention you're giving to your computer and the people you're talking to online to your actual life, maybe you'd have a better relationship.
But that's hard. That takes work. And online is just so much easier.
Right.
And so we're so quick to want the easy fix. I want to catch all that dopamine, but I don't have to do the exercise to get it.
And online, I'm not an impotent, balding man. I'm this young buck who can really satisfy a woman.
And then we're shocked when we've been living in this made-up world and it's not like real life. Real life can't compare to it.
No, it can't live up to it because it's not real.
That's right.
So you're really setting yourself up to fail because it's an unrealistic expectation that you're never going to achieve. But unfortunately, the relationship did carry on, and the two would talk about how badly Jessie wanted Tommy and how Tom yearned to be that for her. They then very descriptively discussed what they would do to and with one another if they could. Brian was the only one telling the truth in this love triangle. He was genuine and sincere and ended up paying with his life for the actions of two selfish and messed up dirtbags. John J. DeFranks, the first deputy attorney for Erie County, said about this case, quote, "The uniqueness of this case is that everybody appeared to be misleading everybody else, and the whole situation, which resulted in a violent death, was unnecessary. Ironically, the only person telling the truth here was the victim, Brian Barrett." Brian's parents have been vocal about the loss of their son. Brian's father was on a CNN program with Nancy Grace. He spoke about how wonderful his son was. He was working hard and enjoyed being 22 years old in New York. On weekend, Brian enjoyed going out for wings with his friends and hanging out. The weekend of his murder, Brian's family had gone camping. Brian had to work, so he didn't go with them. They didn't know anything was wrong until they came home on Sunday morning and could see that Brian hadn't fed their cats. An hour later, the police showed up at their family home to tell them the terrible news about their son's murder.
It would have been so awful.
It really would have been. Daniel, Brian's father, admitted that he and his wife were sickened when they learned what happened. They literally felt like they were going to throw up. Nancy asked Daniel if he ever considered filing a civil suit against Mary. He responded, quote, "Yes, we have. And in the end, she's a worthless piece of meat out there. And a civil suit would do nothing. I mean, we filed a civil suit against Tom Montgomery with the attitude of stopping him from ever trying to write a book and winning money and things of that nature. And Mary Schuyler, she has nothing. She's just a piece of dirt." Daniel continued to say, quote, "That piece of dirt belongs in prison. That's where she belongs. And that's one of the reasons why we're on the phone talking. It's because I just feel it needs to change. You shouldn't be able to do and manipulate what she did to the level that she took, and then walk away and say, that was interesting. I'm going on to my next little project." And to Daniel, I say, no arguments here.
Yeah.
I did read in a later article that Brian's family did file a wrongful death lawsuit against Tom, the Dynabraid Corporation, and Mary, but I am unsure what came of these suits. Brian's high school that he attended has since implemented seminars to teach parents how to avoid internet predators. Lieutenant Ron Kenyon gave words of caution after this case. He said, quote, "When you're on the internet talking, you haven't got a clue who that is on the other end. You don't have a clue."
Yeah, they can send you pictures, they can do whatever, but you have no idea.
You don't. And especially now with more AI technology, they can bamboozle you quite easily. CBS News technology analyst Larry Magid gave a similar warning. He said, quote, "We hear a lot about protecting children online, but much of that advice should apply to adults as well. Regardless of their age, internet users need to realize that people may not be whom they claim to be. People should be extremely careful about giving out personal information or arranging personal meeting with those they meet online. The only way you can get physically hurt from an online relationship is if the person knows who you are and where to find you. Don't give out that information, and don't meet up with someone unless it's in a public place with lots of other people around. And even then, be extremely careful." To this, I also say, if you are married and think it's fun to toy with strangers on the internet, get a life and just stop. In the end, it is said that Tom has never really expressed or shown any remorse for his actions. He is divorced, his kids won't see him, and he is under constant suicide watch. I feel like he knew exactly what he was doing. He had almost 2 whole years to do the right thing and end things with the girl he thought to be Jessie. But his selfishness came first. He didn't care about anyone but himself. And that is the case of a jealousy-fueled pervert who tried to woo a teenager and ended up catfishing a catfish. The Gross Excuse of a Man, Dirtbag Thomas Montgomery.
Wow, Christy, you were right. That was full of drama.
It really was.
And it's so fitting that he got catfished too.
That part I did like. I don't like how that happened, but it was poetic justice.
Yeah, it was one wild ride.
It really was. So whatever you're doing online, please be careful. And if you go fishing this weekend, don't go for catfish.
Absolutely. Until next week.
See ya.
Bye. What else are you trolling for that's what's coming up?
That's just what comes up on my Facebook. Like, how do I say ugly without saying he's ugly? Because little beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Have your Mrs. Robinson moment.
If he has a Mrs. Robinson moment at 45, he's like hooking up with a 90-year-old.
That's a confident, tall, hot blonde.
Yes, that is.
But if I was a tall, hot blonde, maybe I would want to say it too. I've never been one, so I don't know.
You're right. Maybe frame of reference is different if you actually are it.
Yeah. I could do short, sassy redhead.
There you go.
But not tall, hot blonde. Yeah. Some of it I was like, oh, this is like not okay for me to be reading. Gross.
Oh, wash my eyeballs.
Yeah. It just occurred to me now that I might be saying it wrong. So weird.
Hello, ghosty girl.
Yes. Welcome to our podcast. Let me tell you a story about a catfish. I hope that there was so many extra victims in her and Tom were suited for each other. That's all I'm saying.
But it almost feels like Jessica Muppins, right? Like, serves you right, you little dirtbag.
Yeah, it's poetic justice.
Yeah.
Go have an actual affair with someone your age if you need attention from another man. Not that I'm telling anyone to go have an affair on their spouse, but...
Another Sound Off Media Company podcast.